Hello, everyone. This is Live Life Well TV host Robert Landau, and I am here with another episode of health and wellness tips. This episode focuses on how to not be a negative Nelly. Stay tuned. Why would this topic be featured on health and wellness tips here on Live Life Well TV? Well, because of what science is now starting to prove. What would that be? Negative thinking has a direct effect on our health. End of story. And one of the ways to explain that would be this. When we keep choosing, because it's a choice, to think negative thought after negative thought after negative thought, or maybe even the same negative thought in an habitual pattern so many times during each and every day for weeks and months on end, that does affect our health. How so? Your brain. One of the things your brain is programmed to do is to receive and pick up all of the thoughts and feelings, the energy of those things, and send that energy back to every cell of your body. So those cells kind of dance in whatever it is that you chose to send to your brain. So in other words, if you're thinking positive, happy thoughts, your brain's going to receive that and take that energy and turn around, because it's programmed to do this, and send all that happy, positive energy into the rest of your body by way of your cells. Same thing happens with negative thinking, negative thought patterns, and that negative energy gets distributed all throughout your body. And the more that this happens based on the thoughts you choose to think and feel, the more your body is going to respond. I'll tell you a very, very quick story. Many of you know that I was an international cruise director for many years, and every cruise I would stand at the gangway and welcome all the passengers on board whatever ship I was cruise directing on the first day of our cruise together. And I could always tell what type of cruise it was going to be based on the passengers' energy that I would welcome on board the ship that first cruise embarkation day. There were these two sisters who came aboard the ship one cruise, and they didn't look like sisters. Why? Because one greeted me like this: "Well, hello, Mr. Cruise Director. Great to see you. This is my sister, Mary. We're going to have a great cruise, and we're glad you're here, and we can't wait to see these Asian ports of call. Where's our cabin?" And right after her was her sister, Mary, and Mary's whole disposition was totally the opposite. It was more like, "Hello, Mary, your sister just told me who you were, so welcome aboard." And she responded, "Yeah, okay, where's my cabin? Where's my sister?" And I thought, oh boy, she's going to be an interesting one. And all throughout the cruise, it was a 2-week cruise, Hong Kong, Japan, China, South Korea, back to Hong Kong. And Mary was just not happy with anything. Her sister, Jessica, was overjoyed and more than thankful and grateful for everything, not only on the ship, but of course ashore, with what she encountered in these wonderful, once-in-a-lifetime ports of call. Mary's reaction to what was on board and ashore, not pleasant. And I heard from some of the shore excursion personnel in many of our ports of call along the way that Mary just was not very nice to them. It's interesting. But I thought this would be the last time I would see the two of those sisters because Mary just was not having a good time. And I wasn't sure how much Jessica was listening to Mary's thoughts on cruising with us again. Lo and behold, 2 years later, I was standing at the gangway of an Alaska cruise we were going to do, and there come the two sisters again. But something was very, very different. Both of them were happy. Mary looked like Jessica. You could tell they were sisters because both were smiling, both were thankful and very happy to be on the ship and to visit those Alaskan ports of call. And I had shore excursion personnel in some of those Alaskan ports like Juneau and Ketchikan come and tell me, wow, those sisters are so much fun. I hope they come back again. We need more cruise ship passengers ashore like those two. So on the last day of that Alaskan cruise, I went up to Mary at the farewell captain's cocktail party and said, Mary, gotta ask you a question because we kind of know each other just a little bit because this is both of your second cruise with us. My question, and you don't have to answer it if you don't want to, but Mary, you're like two different people. When I met you in Hong Kong that day of embarkation, you were not happy with the world, and if I might say so, you were not happy with yourself. But all through this Alaskan cruise, from the moment you got on until this moment, you are an absolute joy, ready to celebrate and more than willing to celebrate each and every moment of life. What happened? And she said to me this, Robert, 2 months after I got back home from that Asian cruise, I got deathly ill. I'm not even going to go into it now, but suffice it to say that if that had gone on any longer, I'm not sure I would have been here now. And I said, Mary, wow, I'm so sorry to hear that. Why did you get so sick? And she said, well, long story, but you know what it came down to after lots of research on my part and what my doctors were telling me? The thoughts that I chose to think. I became so depressed, so negative, so unhappy that I was beginning to feel what that felt like in my body. And I was getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And I said, well, how did you get to where you are now? And she said, you know what? I refused to do some of what I was told to do. And what I did instead was work on my inner self, my mindset, how I talk to myself within myself. And I decided that I would really try to do some positive thinking within myself instead of constant negative thinking. And you know what? After just a couple of days of doing that, I was starting to feel so much better. So with some of the medications I was given, but with some natural supplements, and most important medicine for me, Robert, was how I changed talking to myself within myself from negative thoughts to more positive thoughts. And you know what? Every once in a while, negative thoughts come back in, and that's okay, Robert, but I don't swim in them. As soon as they come in, I honor them, but I move on to more positive things. Thank you for asking, Robert. And you know what? I saw those sisters on 2 more cruises over the next 3 years. But that's a really good example of how negative thinking does not work for you, and being a negative Nelly is not in your best interests. Get this, just to reiterate what Mary was saying before I close, I believe that there is a direct connection between the negative thoughts we choose to think and our health, as I've said, as Mary said. It is said that when you are stressed or depressed, the cortisol levels in your body increase, making your immune system less able to control things like inflammation, which could lead to disease over time. A 2009 study from a journal called Circulation looked at data from nearly 100,000 women and found that most clinical participants in that study were more likely to have heart disease than the least cynical folks. So in a clinical setting, they looked at cynical behavior in a clinic, and they found that those who, through negative thinking, who were more cynical had more likely of a chance to contract heart disease than the less cynical people in that clinical study. Bit of a tongue twister, but I got it out. According to a 2014 study published in a journal called Stroke, people who scored higher on measures of unfriendliness, as well as those with chronic stress and depressive symptoms, had a higher risk of stroke than the friendlier, kinder participants. Depression can be linked to an increased risk for type 2 diabetes, heart attack, and a greater chance of disability later in life. Not only that, but when we choose to think negative thoughts on a habitual basis, we tend to overeat and overdrink and can't sleep, and so on and so forth. So the question becomes, before we close, how do you stop negative thinking? Well, it's kind of what Mary was saying. You have to care enough about yourself, number one, to do something about it, particularly if you find that it is not only affecting your health, but your spirit, your joy, your happiness. And if it is starting to do that, then here's what to do. Be aware of when you start to be a negative Nelly. And then it's one thing to be aware of it, but the next step, the most important step, is to do something about it. So what do you do when you start to think negative? Stop. Change your thought pattern. Do something different. Get up, go outside of your apartment and get involved in something. Go for a walk, turn on the TV, talk to a neighbor, call a family member. Just do something different that'll take you out of that negative thought pattern immediately. It's when you choose to just sit there and swim in that negative thought soup, then you might drown. It's so much easier than you think. So many of you pray. Some of you meditate. Also being aware of just your natural breathing process and feeling that and thinking about that. Just your natural inhales and exhales, almost like you're meditating, will take you out of negative thought patterns. It's easy. All you got to do is do it. So in closing, my question to you is this. Are you a perpetual, habitual negative Nelly? Or might you be something greater? The choice is always yours. This has been Robert Landau, Live Life Well TV host, with another episode of Health and Wellness Tips. Smile and think positive. God bless.